All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a fascinating, incredibly high-stakes document. Just imagine receiving a letter from a mentor, a leader you deeply respect, but the return address, it's a maximum security cell. We are examining a 2,000-year-old message written by a man who is literally sitting on death row. He's facing imminent execution, and he's writing this to his young, timid protege. The stakes couldn't possibly be higher, and the urgency in his words, well, it's something that still resonates so powerfully today.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Right out of the gate, the author, the Apostle Paul, drops this incredible line. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. This isn't just some piece of ancient history meant to gather dust in a museum. It's a direct challenge to anyone reading it today who struggles with keeping their beliefs quiet, urging them to step out of the shadows and actually stand by their convictions.
Section 1. A letter from death row. The stakes of 2 Timothy.
So, setting the scene here, the author is the Apostle Paul, and he's writing the book of 2 Timothy from a cold, dark Roman prison. Now, this isn't his first time behind bars, but this second imprisonment is completely different. The situation is incredibly grim. Paul knew he wasn't getting out this time. Take a second to just imagine the solemn reality of that realization. This is a man who knows his clock is rapidly running out. He doesn't have much time left at all. So every single word he writes to his young friend Timothy isn't just casual advice. It's his urgent, final message. It's the legacy he is desperately trying to leave behind.
Moving on to Section 2. Fan the flame, igniting what you have.
Knowing his protege really struggles with fear and timidity, Paul doesn't just offer him a simple cliché pep talk. He tells Timothy to actually fan into flame the gift of God. Notice the specific phrasing here. Fanning into flame is an action taken to feed and stir up a fire that God has already kindled. Timothy isn't starting from scratch. According to the text, he already has incredibly strong faith and spiritual gifts, but his fear and his timidity are actively suppressing them. They're basically suffocating the fire. The fire is there, for sure, but the oxygen is being completely cut off by his fear. It's a struggle that is honestly highly relevant to so many students and leaders today.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict Paul's highlighting in the text. Look, timidity and fear are totally natural human reactions to pressure, right? But Paul reminds Timothy that the Spirit does not produce that fear. It produces power, love, and self-discipline. The text presents a really stark choice between letting fear shrink you down or leaning into those inherent powerful traits.
So, fanning the flame is a deliberate action. The text outlines concrete ways to actually stir up that gift, in the Word, in prayer, or in community. It forces us as readers to ask ourselves a tough question. Where exactly is fear holding us back right now, whether it's in our daily conversations or our commitments? The source material challenges its audience to pick just one of these concrete actions this week and start feeding that fire again.
Which brings us to Section 3, the trap of timidity. The pressure to be low-key.
Let's be honest, expressing deep convictions in modern social settings, especially on campus, can feel really awkward. It is so tempting to just put your head down, blend in, and completely avoid being that guy who is just a little too intense about their faith. We feel this immense pressure to just be low-key. But Paul, he doesn't let his readers off the hook. He argues that the desire to seem normal, low-key, and chill is often just a mask for shame. He directly calls out this desire to casually blend in for what he believes it truly is. It's not being polite, it's actually being ashamed of the very gospel Paul is preaching. It's a pretty tough, firm coaching moment from a mentor to a student.
All right, Section 4, suffering and shame. Joining the struggle.
Here, Paul actively asks Timothy to step up and join him in suffering for the gospel, but he adds this absolutely vital caveat. You don't do this through your own strength, you do it by the power of God. And to make this real, Paul points to actual people in his life. He draws this stark character contrast. On one hand, you have individuals like Phygellus and Hermogenes, who completely deserted him when things got tough and he was locked in chains. But then, you have Onesiphorus. When Paul was imprisoned, Onesiphorus actually sought him out. He stayed and he refreshed Paul. He was completely unashamed of his friend's literal chains, while everyone else was fleeing for the hills.
Using Onesiphorus as the benchmark, the text explicitly notes he refreshed Paul. And this turns the lens right back on us, asking, who in your own community are you actively refreshing this week? Because in Paul's view, being unashamed means actively seeking out and standing by those who are facing the fire themselves.
And finally, Section 5, Stand Unashamed, the ultimate perspective shift.
For readers who feel they just lack the willpower to be that bold, Paul offers a final massive perspective shift. He argues that courage doesn't come from drumming up internal willpower, but from the core message itself, the incredible claim that Jesus destroyed death. Paul highlights the irony here, and it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Sweating over social judgment, terrified that someone might think you're a little uncool or too intense, well, that makes absolutely no sense if you truly believe the central claim that the ultimate enemy, literal death, has been completely defeated. When a person grasps that, Paul suggests the fear of not being low-key enough just totally evaporates.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, we are left with two provocative questions derived directly from the text. First, is there an area of your life where timidity is holding you back? Be brutally honest with yourself about where that is happening. And second, how does Paul's profound claim that death itself has been defeated change how you approach that shame? It's a 2,000-year-old challenge to look at the chains of social fear, recognize they hold absolutely no real power whatsoever, and boldly fan your convictions into a blazing flame.